and welcome back to the lecture series. We are discussing novel and existence. So, we understand or discuss today Da-sein and the question of historicity, history formation, historiography, right? The analysis of the historicity of Da-sein attempts to show that this being, the being that Da-sein is not temporal merely because it is in history, but actually the other way around, because on the contrary, Da-sein exists and can exist historically mainly because of its temporal positioning, temporal location. So, the existential problem of historicity can be divided up as follows: the vulgar understanding of history and the occurrence of Da-sein, the fundamental constitution of historicity, the historicity of Da-sein and world history, and then the existential origin of historiography from the historicity of Da-sein. History here refers neither to the science of history nor history as an object, but rather it refers to Da-sein which has not necessarily been objectified. So, history does not so much mean the past in the sense of what past is, but here we are looking at the derivation that we get, that we have from the past. Whatever has a history is in the context of a becoming. Here, development, the word development refers to sometimes a rise and sometimes a fall. Whatever has a history in this way, in this sense, a development that is undulating, that has its crests and troughs, can at the same time make history. Whatever has a non-uniform history with high and low points, can at the same time make history. So, in epoch making in the present, there is already a determination of the future. So, history here refers to a connection of events and effects that moves through the past, the present and the future. So, the past that we traditionally associate with the history here as such has no particular priority. We are rather looking at a continuum, a connection. History signifies the whole of beings that change in time, the transformations and destinies of humankind, human institutions and their cultures, which is seen in contradistinction to the nature that similarly also moves in time. So, history in this context means region of beings or region of existence that one distinguishes from nature with regard to the essential determination of the existence of human being as spirit and culture. Although we see that nature also belongs to history when seen in this way. So, Da-sein is primarily historical and secondarily also historical. It manifests within this world, not only as useful things at hand in a broad sense, but also in terms of nature in the surrounding world, which is available as the historical ground. The dominance of a differentiated historiographical interest, even in the most remote and primitive cultures, uh, cannot qualify as the proof of the authentic history of that age. So, what to put in very plain words, what we record in history in oral and written forms uh, is always it always falls short of how that age was. Not everything can be recorded in, I mean, either orally or uh, in scriptural form through documentation. So the rise of the problem of historicism is a clear indication that historiography strives to alienate Da-sein from its authentic historicity. So we have, on the one hand, the authentic historicity of Da-sein, and then we have the historiographical formation, which is a move away from this historicity. Historicity does not necessarily need historiography. Uh, Unhistoriographical ages are are as such uh, not automatically unhistorical. They are, in other words, unhistoriographical ages can be historical too. So, unhistoriographical ages can be historical by default. Nietzsche recognizes about advantage and disadvantage of historiography for life uh, in the second of his work, Untimely Meditations, which came out in 1874, and states this thing, unequivocally. Uh, he distinguishes three kinds of historiography, the three kinds being the monumental one, the antiquarian, and the critical. However, he does not demonstrate explicitly the necessity of this triad uh, and also the ground of its unity. This threefold character of historiography, comprising the monumental, the antiquarian, and the critical, is prefigured in the historicity of Da-sein. So, how, if we want to elaborate this point? As historical, Da-sein is possible only on the basis of temporality. So, temporality temporalizes itself in the ecstatic horizontal unity of its raptures. Da-sein exists essentially as a futural, and is authentically, and so it is authentically available in the resolute disclosure of a chosen possibility. So it resolutely comes back to itself and is open to be retrieved for the monumental possibilities of human existence. So the historiography that is arising from this historicity is monumental. Historicity, uh, to explain in simpler words, uh, as it exists authentically in the form of Da-sein, in the form of a futural, Da-sein which is a historicity and which exists as futural, uh, is available for disclosure of possibilities, later on, and it can be retrieved through monumental meanings. So, arbitrary happenings can later on be rediscovered as monumental possibilities of human existence. And this monumental dimension is nothing but historiography. Historicity is more random. Historicity is all kinds of possibilities, all kinds of occurrences. Historiography is the monumental version, the monumental uh, 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 rendition of historicity, if we could call it. So, as monumental, authentic historiography then becomes antiquarian. Here, the Seine temporalizes itself in the unity of future with the having been as the present. So, in its authentic sense, monumental antiquarian historiography is necessarily a critic of the present. So, monumental antiquarian historiography, in other words, would touch on some selective high points. So, it is almost like an epic past, the golden past, the prelapsarian past that is constantly uh, critical of the present, because it is always already hierarchically in a loftier position compared to the present. So, authentic historicity is the foundation of the possible unity of all three kinds of historiography. The existential and historical origin of historiography may be presented concretely through analyzing the thematization which constitutes this science. Historiographical thematization uh, is the process of developing the hermeneutical or interpretive situation that is opened up uh, to disclose meanings in retrieval of what has been there once the historically existing design has made its resolution. So, from arbitrary, set of actions or events, we tend to make resolutions. We tend to freeze the past in terms of certain high meanings, high events, chapters, and people. That is, monumentation. That is the antiquarian aspect, which is constantly critical of the present. It becomes a past that is besides the past. It is a kind of a concentrate of the past. So, the possibility and the structure of historiographical truth are to be set forth in terms of the authentic disclosedness, which also comprises the truth of historical existence. What is the truth in a historical existence? Whatever is available to disclosure, whatever gets disclosed is the truth, right? The theory of the humanistic sciences presupposes a thematic and existential interpretation of the historicity of the same. Now, a German historian called Wilhelm Dilthey is remembered as an interpreter of the history of the spirit, especially the history of literature, and he concerns himself with the distinction between the natural and the human sciences. Uh, he attributes a distinctive role to the history of these sciences and also to psychology, and then also attempts at merging the whole, all the different sciences, the human sciences, the natural sciences, into relativistic larger philosophy of life, all the sciences conflating and converging into a relativistic philosophy of life. So, Dilthey's investigations can be divided schematically into three areas. One is psychology, in which the whole fact of man is presented and differentiated from the natural sciences. Then investigations on the history of the human sciences, society and the state. And then the third is an endeavor towards a psychology that would, kind of merge the whole fact of being human and present it as a whole. Now, all these studies are centered on the psychology that is supposed to understand life in the historical context, context of its development and its effects, as a way of understanding the human being as the possible object of the human sciences, and especially the root of these sciences. So, hermeneutics is the self clarification, or let us say, hermeneutics is the symptom of this understanding. It is also the methodology of historiography, uh, albeit in a derivative sense. Now, we have someone called Count Hans Ludwig Paul York. York's tendencies are brought to life by Dilthey's questions and work, and York's tendency can be seen in his attitude towards analytical psychology. York is demanding a logic that precedes that sciences, all the sciences, but also something that guides them, uh, just as we see in the case of Platonic and Aristotelian logic. So, York's demand entails the task of radically developing the various categorical structures of the being that is nature and the being that is history, right? In other words, the latter, the being that is history, is none other than Da-sein. York finds that Dilthey's investigations are inadequate in pointing out the generic difference between the ontic and the historical. So, as a philologian, York conceives of historiography as a cabinet of antiquities where nothing is palpable, such that only a living psychical transposition can guide us forward. To quote York, he says, all written history that is alive and not just depicting life is critic. But historical knowledge is, for the best part, knowledge of hidden sources, unquote. So, York sets out to grasp the historical categorically as opposed to the ontic, and then to elevate life into its appropriate scientific understanding. According to York, understanding historicity entails the task of developing what he calls as the generic difference between the ontic and the historical. According to him, non-historical beings, all non-historical beings are simply ontic. It is a conglomerate, a kind of a fusing of the ontic with the historiographical. The problem of the difference between the ontic and the historiographical can be worked out through setting up certain guidelines that recourse to fundamental ontology in order to clarify the question of the meaning or meanings of being or existence in general. I would like to stop our lecture here today, and let's meet in another lecture for another round of discussions. Thank you.